Guidelines to treat acute hypercalcemia. So first of all, we should know what the definition of acute hypercalcemia. It usually refers to a rapid rise in serum calcium over days to week. What is the exact value? I'll be talking to you in the coming slides. But one thing is very sure, it is a matter of days or weeks. Then, before really we go into the management part, we should know what are the common cause of acute hypercalcemia. Malignancy-associated hypercalcemia, this is the most common cause of acute severe hypercalcemia. It is such an important cause. That means you are getting a case of hypercalcemia, you have to think in terms of any malignancy. Primary hyperthyroidism with hypercalcemic crisis, vitamin D intoxication, granulomatous disease like sarcoidosis, of course, they are much less common causes. Then medication-induced hypercalcemia, particularly thiazide, lithium, and calcium supplementation. Prolonged immobilization is very common, especially in the elderly people. Well, treatment of acute hypercalcemia, emergency management guidelines. Step 1 is assess severity. Hypercalcemia is considered severe and requires urgent treatment when serum calcium level is 14 mg/% or more, irrespective of the symptoms. If serum calcium is between 12 to 14 mg/% with symptom, then again it requires urgent treatment. Well, in a known case of concerned disease, which I mentioned earlier, now what are symptoms by which you will think that you are dealing with a case of acute hypercalcemia? Common symptoms are confusion, lethargy, coma. That is more of a CNS manifestation. Polyuria, dehydration, and polydipsia, more of a renal symptoms. Nausea, vomiting, and constipation, GIT symptom. Muscle weakness, short QT interval or arrhythmias. Golden line to remember: if patient present with acute symptomatic hypercalcemia, that is serum calcium 14 or more than 14 mg/%, assume malignant unless proven otherwise, because it is far the most common cause of rapidly developing severe hypercalcemia. Now, the first diagnostic step after confirmation of true hypercalcemia is to measure serum PTH level. Again, a very important point, you get a serum calcium level is very high, PTH level. It's a very important step to differentiate between the malignancy or other cause. So important, and that will really help in management. So if PTH is high or inappropriately normal PTH, assume primary hyperparathyroid. But if PTH is suppressed, then you get malignancy, vitamin D excess, granulomatous disease, medication like thiazide, lithium, or other non-PTH causes. So now, broadly, we can classify into PTH level, increase or decrease. Well, as I told you, the most common cause is malignancy, so definitely the PTH level will be reduced. That is a very safe thing to rule out primary hyperparathyroid. With this background, now we move further. Step 2. Step 2. Immediate measure is stop calcium supplementation. Very, very important point. If it patient's taking vitamin D, thiazide, diuretic, and lithium, that means if the patient is taking any of the drugs which are known to cause hypercalcemia, you have to stop them immediately. Okay, yes. Then you monitor vital signs, ECG, urine output and mental status. Vital sign usually BP is usually they have a high BP. Hypercalcemia is the known cause of hypertension. ECG, urine output because already they have polyuria, and mental status. I told you patient may have confusion, irritability. Try to underlying cause definitely. In fact, the most commonly malignancy or primary hyperparathyroid. But you try to see, take a good history, see the previous papers and try to find out what's the cause. But now, before I proceed further, I have a question for you. I talked to you regarding ECG. Write down the answer in your copy. What finding you will get in the ECG in this patient. Quickly, ECG finding in a case of acute hypercalcemia. I am sure by now you must have written it. The answer is short QT interval. In fact, this point I already discussed in one of the previous slides. I hope you notice it, but now you must have done it rightly. So now we come to step 3. We got a patient and we try to find out what are the cause. Now we are actually managing the case of hypercalcemia. Aggressive intravenous hydration. This is the first line treatment. Remember, in the previous slide, we investigated and tried to find out the cause. Now, actual management, intravenous fluid, normal saline is given. The cornerstone of treatment, 2 to 300 ml per hour, initial rate. And of course, you have to adjust according to age, cardiac, and renal status. The broad guidelines, what NICE says. Okay, so broad guidelines are there. And you have to adjust that dose. Aim for is urine output 100 to 150 ml per hour, the urine output. Use caution in patient with heart failure or chronic kidney disease. Step 4, calcitonin we use. It's a rapid but temporary effect is there. We can use calcitonin 4 international unit per kg subcutaneous or IM every 12 hours. You may increase the dose to 8 IU per kg every 6 hours also if needed. Onset is very rapid within 4 to 6 hours. But maximum effect will come in 12 to 24 hours. Point to be noted, we are using calcitonin as the first line medication after the saline given. Why is it so? And I'm sure there must be a question coming to your mind regarding furosemide, which has been the traditional teaching. What is the role of furosemide? I'll be talking to you very soon. Okay, so after calcitonin, now the thing is, tachyphylaxis occurs. That means you have given this drug for 2 to 3 days. Tachyphylaxis comes, that means the effectiveness goes away. So we give as a bridge while definite therapy are given. Okay, what definite therapy are given, I'll be talking in the coming slide. But I have a question for you. Here we have given calcitonin subcutaneous or intramuscular. But there is one condition where we even give intranasal calcitonin also as a spray, nasal spray. Write down the answer in your copy. In which condition we use intranasal spray calcitonin? Well, I'm sure by now you have written the answer. Intranasal. The answer is postmenopausal osteoporosis. We use intranasal. Now, after calcitonin, we give biphosphonate, IV biphosphonate. It is a definite therapy. So we can give either zonandronic acid, 4 milligram IV over at least 15 minutes. This is a preferred agent. But in case if it is not available, Second alternative is pemidronate, 60 to 90 milligram IV over 2 to 4 hours. Now, what I said in the previous slide was the calcitonin we give as a bridge therapy. Now, what is the meaning of bridge therapy? Why we give? Look into this. Onset is 24 to 48 hours. This was in contrast to calcitonin, where the action onset starts in 4 to 8 hours. Peak effect come in 4 to 7 days, in contrast to calcitonin, which the peak come within 1 day. Okay, duration for weeks, effect remain. So it will take 24 to 48 hours to start and peak in 4 to 7 days. So we need a bridge therapy. That's why we have given calcitonin. Okay, so calcitonin will start acting very fast, and by the time the effect of calcitonin goes away, the effect of biphosphonate start. That's why we use the term as bridge therapy. Dose adjustment may be necessary in renal impairment for biphosphonate. Now, what are the alternative therapy? If severe renal failure is there or refractory hypercalcemia, then we use denosumab 120 milligram subcutaneous. Point to be noted. I told you in the previous slide, in case of chronic renal failure, we have to adjust the dose. But if not working, even refractory, we use denosumab. Useful in biphosphonate resistant or kidney dysfunction cases, we prefer to use denosumab. Again, a very, very important point to be noted. Now, suppose you got a case due to vitamin D intoxication. Then we use prednisolone 20 to 40 milligram per day. But remember, in these cases, stopping of the drugs which are causing increased calcium level, they is more important. Okay, you have to stop those drugs. So now this is effective in sarcoidosis, lymphoma, and vitamin D intoxication. So in such cases, prednisolone is effective. Of course, initial management like giving IV fluid is mandatory. Now, suppose there is life-threatening hypercalcemia with renal failure or fluid overload, then you go for hemodialysis, okay, using a low calcium diazide. Okay, so this is used only in condition where we have renal failure or fluid overload. Now, what's the role of loop diuretic? It's not recommended. This is very, very important. This is the big change as compared to the previous traditional teaching that loop diuretic was the number one choice of drug for the treatment of acute hypercalcemia. Now, the latest guidelines say they are not to be used. Okay, why? Why this change has occurred? We were using loop diuretic because previously these biphosphonate drugs were not available. But the latest guidelines have changed the treatment altogether. They use biphosphonate over furosemide. This we use, of course, sometimes you can give only after adequate hydration, and you use if fluid overload is there. As I told you, you have to give IV fluid very fast in large quantity. But if due to any reason fluid overload has occurred, then only you will be using furosemide, otherwise not a routine treatment. Example, furosemide may be useful cautiously in patients with heart failure. Cautiously in heart failure. Then furosemide will be helping in the heart failure also. So I hope you are clear about the main concern, the role of loop diuretics. So now to give a summary, practical ICU approach. First, hydrate, calcitonin, biphosphonate, and treat the cause. This holds true for every case. Definitely. Patient come to you with acute hypercalcemia. First of all, we just go for the treatment of acute hypercalcemia. Once the patient settles down in a day or 2 or 3, then definitely, unless you treat the cause, patient will again have the problem. So, beautiful summary, HCBC, H for hydration, C for calcitonin, B for biphosphonate, and C for treat the cause. HCBC, the mnemonic to remember. So, severe symptomatic hypercalcemia, saline, calcitonin, biphosphonate. Malignancy associated, you have to give with this plus zorandoic and denosumab. Vitamin D excess, corticosteroid. Of course, you will give IV fluid. Severe CKD, denosumab or dialysis. Fluid overload, dialysis, or cautious use of loop diuretic. It's a beautiful summary of what all I discussed in this lecture. Golden line to remember. Normal saline is the first and the most important aspect of treatment. Calcitonin works faster but loses efficacy after 48 to 72 hours. Biphosphonates are slower but provide sustained control. Do not use loop diuretic routinely. Always search for the cause and treat the underlying cause. That is the most important. Thank you.